Kakalosh Boker Tov. We're going to be continuing on the Tzadik Aleph Amud Aleph, which is 91a1. So yesterday, if you remember, we were talking about yesterday's daf. That we're talking about that Rav Yehuda says that if we're talking about, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, that the gagin, that the roofs were the shoots to themselves, the chatzerot were the shoot to themselves, and the karpifot were the shoot for themselves, which means the roofs, they were all one entity with themselves. The courtyards with themselves, and also the karpifot, which was the place where they used to store the wood, was also for themselves. So each one had their own entity in itself, and therefore they could carry between each one, but they cannot intermix between them. According to the Chachamim, they say that every single gag, every single roof is a reshut bifnei, which means each one is its own domain. So then the gagin and chatzerot, they're considered one, and therefore you could be metaltel, you could carry from a gag to a chatzer, which is the roof to the courtyard, or courtyard to the roof, or a karpifot to the reshut chaten. And you're allowed to take from the karpaf of one person to a karpaf of another person, but you cannot take from the chatzer or gag to the karpaf, and the opposite, vice versa. The divrei Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon, kulan reshut chaten, they're all considered one reshut. Okay, it's all one thing, whether it's a gag, chatzer, karpaf, it's all the same chulent, it's all the exact same concept. Okay, Tanya Kavated the Rav, Tanya Kavated the Rav Yehuda. We learned that according to Rav and according to Rav Yehuda, that means whether it's going to be that according to like Chachamim, right? That's what it says over here, that it's like according to the Chachamim that it's going to be asur mitatel only for a mot, and like Rav Yehuda that we said already that he's explaining the words of Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. Tanya Kavated the Rav. We're going to go now in accordance to Rav. Kol gagot ha'ir reshut achaten. According to this, all the gags of the city, all the different types of the roofs of the city, reshut achaten, they are considered one reshut. Okay? You're not allowed to come and you're not allowed to take up or down from the gag to the chatzer or from the chatzer to the gag. When you have a keli, a utensil, which actually stayed in the chatzer, you're allowed to come and you're allowed to be mitaltel in the chatzer. Okay? Begagin, right? Or the gag, mutal letaltel begagin. So anything which was in the roof, you're allowed to be mitaltel in the roof. As long as it's not going to be taller or shorter than 10 tfachim from its friend. You remember the picture that we kept on having, which was basically that the roof was above or below 10 tfachim, so then it's going to be a different domain. These are the words that Rabbi Meir. Chachamim say, that every single roof is its own reshut, and therefore you cannot carry from one to another. And you're only allowed to carry 4 amot within the gag. Okay, you're not allowed to carry an entire gag, but since it's open up to the rest, so then that's why you're not allowed to. Tanya Kavated Rav Yehuda. We also learned that according to Rav Yehuda, Amar Rebbe, says Rebbe, we're talking about Rav Yehuda Nasi, Keshehainu lomdim Torah tzal Rabbi Shimon Bitkoa, when we used to learn Torah by Rabbi Shimon in the name of a city called Tekoa, by Bitkoa. So it says here, Hainu ma'alin shemen v'aluntit. We used to bring up shemen, oil, and aluntit, and a magevet. It's like a towel, right, in order to dry yourselves off, right? It says over here, migag legag, migag lechatzer, mechatzer, lechatzer, mechatzer, lekapav, mikapav, lekapav, acher. So Pashut, they used to actually come and travel, and they used to carry, whether it's the oil or they used to carry their towels, they used to go from, think about it, from one roof to another roof, a roof to a chatzer to a chatzer, a chatzer to a karpaf to a karpaf, until they used to get to the place where they needed to take their baths. So the mamash used to go from one to another one. Why? Because it was all the same thing. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, Masechet Sakana. There was a story of Masechet Sakana. Vayinu malin sefer Torah. So then even a sefer Torah they used to take away. They used to take it from the chatzer to the gag to the chatzer, chatzer to the kapaf likrobo, in order to read it in a hiding place, because obviously it was a danger to read it publicly. So they weren't able to read in the Beit Knesset. They used to go in hiding. So they had to come, carry it from one to until they were able to get to one place. They were able to read it, right? Amrulo, but they told them 1 second. And Shata Sakana Raya, you can't bring me a proof from Shata Sakana. Obviously, Shata Sakana is a time of danger, of grave danger. So you can't start bringing me proofs from Yilchot Shabbat to a time of grave danger, obviously. Okay? Fine. Now we're by the 2 dots. Okay? It says over here, Rabbi Shimon Omer Echad Gagin. Okay? Where they're talking about Gagin. Amar Rav. Rav comes and he says like this. The halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. What does it mean that the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon? It means that the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon, that you're allowed to be metaltel, right, between all the different properties. So you could be mitatel from one property to another property, there's no problem whatsoever. Okay, well, again, we're talking about properties, means from a gag to a chatzer to a karpaf, all 3 domains are all considered the same type of a domain, and therefore you could carry from within them. Vehu shelo eruv, but that's only if they didn't do an eruv. Aval Eruv, but if they made an Eruv, which means that each one did it, but they didn't do Eruv Chatzerot together, which means every Chatzer made their own Eruv, but they didn't do an all Eruv Chatzerot together. So then you're not allowed to be metaltel from one Chatzer to another one. But then we're going to make a decree. Maybe what's going to happen is you're going to take the things that from the house to the Chatzer, to another Chatzer. And then that you're not allowed to do. Because remember, what we mentioned was you could only take from the same domain to another domain. So for example, the kelim of a Chatzer to another Chatzer. The kelim of a Gag to another Gag. The kelim of a Karpaf to another Karpaf. You remember that picture?
You don't have, unfortunately, the one art scroll has is very illustrative to tell your people. You have this here in your book or in your things you show them. Maybe they haven't.
No, but it's all the same thing. We just mentioned. Hold on 1 second.
It spells it out a little more here. It is difficult to understand.
Why? It's the families, basically.
But here, when you see with your eyes, you can see.
1 second. I'm trying to show you from the Mishnah.
It's pairing out the thing.
I'm just showing the picture.
What number?
The picture is going to be 1 second.
So it sounds like you can say, you know what, I'm not going to do an error because I have benefit.
It's better. That's my question.
It can't be that it's better not to.
So, Rabbi, why are you looking at that? Which point is like, why are you looking at that place? It's better not to do Eiruvin between Chatzerot, between the two people, because then you have one big domain.
It depends if you want nothing to do with them.
No, because there's a big advantage. I want to take things out of my house to my chatzer. That's more important for me to take things out of my house to my chatzer than to take from one chatzer to another chatzer.
In other words, can't I always take something out from my house to my chatzer without an Erev?
For sure not.
My chatzer.
But you're not allowed to unless because it's your chatzer, but it's with someone else. It's shared. Remember?
If I'm not sharing,
if you're not sharing it, it's yours, 100%. Then it's yours. Yeah, then it's like your reshut achid. It's your property, but we're not talking about it. No, we had a picture beforehand. The reason here it is. I found the picture. 908. I found the picture. The reason why I knew it was a picture is because one of my Daf Yomi on YouTube's, the front cover was this picture, and then I took it off and I changed the picture. So it's over here. It's picture number 908. Page 314, exactly. I don't remember now which page we're on now. That's going to be different. So here we have the Kli Karpaf, Kli Chatzer, Kli Bait, and Kli Gag. These are utensils for the roof, utensils for the house, utensils for the courtyard, utensils for the Karpaf. So what we're saying is that you're allowed to take the Kli Karpaf, utensils from the courtyard, and you're allowed to take it into the Chatzer, or the Chatzer to the courtyard, or the courtyard to the roof, or the roof to the Karpaf. But you cannot take the utensils from inside the house to any one of the other ones. So now what we're trying to say is that right now, if you did not make, right, if you made an eruv for your chatzer, but you did not make an eruv chatzerot between the other chatzerot, what happens is now you're not allowed to carry bichlal. Why? Because if not, maybe you're going to take from the house to the chatzer, but that's not a problem because you did eruv chatzerot. But maybe you're going to take from the house to the chatzer and this chatzer to this chatzer. That's a gezerah. You understand? Because we're going to make a gezerah that if we're going to permit you to take from one chatzer to another chatzer, right? Maybe they're going to take out from the bait, from the kelim lotzi gam klei batim, right? Which were inside the things. And then what's going to happen is that you're going to take it to another chatzer. So because of that, we said it's going to be prohibited. Shmuel argues, okay? Now what page are we on? Yeah, Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Ben ervu, ben shelo ervu, right? Whether they made an eruv or they didn't make an eruv. Yeah, right? It doesn't matter. It's always going to be mutal letatel. Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, yeah, mi lachshecha ben ervu ben shelo ervu. Who is the one that told you the secret, as if to say that there's a difference between an eruv and not an eruv? There's no difference. It's all the same exact halacha. So according to that, there's no difference between them. Okay? Fine. So matkif la Rav Chasta. Rav Chasta comes and he's going to ask the following question. Yeah, li Shmuel or Rabbi Yochanan. According to Shmuel, we're on Tzadik Aleph. So this is I have to go back a lot.
There's nothing, no, in Tzadik Aleph. The picture?
Tzadik Aleph Amud Bet, Tzadik Aleph, Tzadik Amud Bet, Tzadik Aleph Amud Bet. No, there's only on Tzadik Aleph Amud Bet. So we could stop the sharing until Amud Bet. Yeah? So it says over here like this. So matkif la rachasa, Rav Chasa comes and he asks the following question. Lishmul Rabbi Yochanan, according to Shemuel and Rabbi Yochanan, right? Yomru shne kelim bechatzer achat, ze mutar v'ze asur. So it comes out that if you have two utensils, right, in one chatzer, one of them is permitted and one of them is prohibited.
Why?
Can you see that? Why? The one that you took from your house into the chatzer, right? You're allowed to do that or not?
No.
Yes, because there was an eruv, right? You made an eruv.
Okay.
So now that you made an eruv, I could take from my house to the chatzer. But now, can I take that utensil to another chatzer? No. Very good. Now, what happens if I already had a keli in the chatzer? Can I take that keli in the chatzer to another chatzer? Yes. So that's what he just said now. It comes out, yomru shne kelim bechatzer echad, ze mutar v'ze asur.
But they did gader. Second ago we said no, just for the safek.
No, we made a gezerah. Exactly, we made a gezerah. But the question that we're saying is, people are going to say, how could it be? How does it make sense that you're going to have two utensils in the same courtyard? One of them is permitted to take to another one, and one of them is prohibited. Doesn't make sense. How do you do that? So says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon l'tameh lo gazar. According to Rabbi Shimon, he's going according to his own reasoning that there was not a gezerah. They never made a gezerah. So since they didn't make a gezerah whatsoever, right? So therefore he says, so therefore there's no problem. You're not going to say that. So he says, why? The Tanam was learned to the Misham. Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon, what does this compare to? When you have three different courtyards that they're open to each other and they're open to the Reshut Rabim. Remember, opening to each other means you have 1, 2, 3. Each one is open to the Reshut Rabim, meaning each one has an exit to the Reshut Rabim, which is down here. I'm making my own picture as we're going. And there's also in between each one, there's also an entrance. So you have the three houses, 1, 2, 3. In between each one, there's an entrance, plus each one has its own entrance to the Reshut Rabim. Okay, so it says over here, so what happens? It says, so now the two outer ones made a eruv with the inner one, with the middle one, right? But the outer ones with each other did not make an eruv. So the two external ones made no eruv between. Well, we learned it already. That's why they probably didn't have a picture, but I just have to remind you. Right, so yeah, the two outer ones made an eruv, right? But with the middle one, but not between themselves. So the two outer ones with themselves are nothing, but the two outer ones with the middle one, they made an eruv. So what does it say? Says the Gemara, right? Hi muteret imahen. So the middle one is permitted with both of the outer ones. Vehen mutarot imah. And the outer ones are going to be permitted with the inner ones. However, those shtei chitzonot, but the two outer ones are going to be prohibited with each other. Velo gazar. Now here in this case, we didn't make such a decree. We never made a decree that maybe you're going to take from this chatzer to another chatzer.
So we shouldn't make
right?
it here either.
Exactly. So therefore, here also we're not going to make it. That means just like over there, we didn't make such a decree, and also was the exact same
We're
thing.
worried about eats outside, we go to the outside.
Exactly. So achanami. So to you, we don't make the same decree. We don't make the same decree. So matkif Rav Sheshat comes and he asks the following question. Rabbi Shimon says, whether we're talking about gagot, chatzerot, or kapifot, whether we're talking about a gag, a chatzer, or a karpaf. Okay, so again, we're talking about a roof, a courtyard, or a karpaf. So we said that it's all one reshut to do with the utensils that were inside of them, but not to the utensils that were within the house. That was the picture that I just showed you over there. Okay, the picture shows that any type of utensil that is used in a karpaf, whether it's luggages or all those things for storage, right? That's where I usually keep over there. Right? That's like the machsan of nowadays, where you usually just store everything in the machsan. Okay? And then it says over here, so what happens? So when we're talking about here, that's a reshut achat lekelim sheshatu b'tocham, but not to do with the kelim of the bite. So if you're going to tell me that we're talking about that you made an eruv, so that's what we're talking about, that you have utensils in the house, in the chatzer. Because since you made an eruv, you're allowed to take it out from the house to the chatzer. There was an eruv. But if you told me now that there was no eruv, how do you find such a case? If there's no eruv, you can never take out your utensils from your house to the courtyard. Doesn't exist. So obviously we're talking about that you actually had to come and you made an eruv. So therefore, right, it says over here, how can you tell me now that you have this? So it says the Gemara, he asked the question, he answered the question, bekumta vesudra. We're talking about a kova and a tzayif. We're talking about a hat and a scarf, right? Which means that they were inside the house, but you're allowed to put them on and take them out, right? Now, if you took it off in the chatzer and you put it, there's a whole question now, can I now come, right, and start carrying it to another chatzer? So that's why Rabbi Shimon says that it's a sur.
Shabbos came in.
It was in the house.
And then he put it on.
And then I wore my hat, I wore my scarf, right? Some people, they wear scarves 24/7. No? You don't remember? Yeah?
Now everybody does it with the Quran.
Yeah, and then what happens? And then all of a sudden, right, you come and you take it out. So you were permitted to take it out. You didn't do any carrying when you took it out. And then what happens is now when you already took it out, you put it off, right? So now you're not allowed to take this utensil and take it somewhere else. Tzadik Aleph Amud Bet, 91b. Okay? So Tashema, we're going to now bring a proof. Anshe Chatzer ve'anshe Mirpeset sheshachu ve'lo irvu. So he said, what happens if you have people in the Chatzer and people in the Mirpeset, right? Let me see if there's a
Here's
picture.
the picture here.
It just shows us this picture. So you have the Anshe Mirpeset, which is this one, and 971.
So in this case, between themselves, they cannot do anything, but between other houses, they can because they didn't do a roof.
Yes. Yeah. Not between other houses, between other courtyards with the garden, things like that, not in the houses.
Yeah.
So Tashema, we're going to say like this: Anshem Chatzer v'Anshem Mirpeset. So you have people in the Chatzer, which means these two people that live in this Chatzer, and you have the Mirpeset, which is the top, the second row, right, the second floor, right? Sheshachu ve'lo irvu. They forgot, they did not make any roof. So he said, Kol shegavua asarat tvachim, anything which is 10 tvachim tall, right? La Mirpeset is sheikh la Mirpeset. So we don't have this picture, but you remember what we had over here on the left side. We had a whole bunch of things about what's going to happen now if you.
Can't see your cursor; it's too small. You made it small again.
Yeah, I know. It bothers if it's doing the regular, but it's okay, right? So here you see my hand, no, Richard? Always give me the hand. I don't like to give the hand too big. No, but then you're giving the chamsa too big. It's not that good. Yeah, do it a little bit, not that big. Yeah. So what happens is that it says over here. So what happens if you had something? Let's say you had something over here, 10 tvachim tall. So then if it's 10 tvachim tall, it belongs to the mirpeset. Okay, which means that the people in the mirpeset could use it.
What's the mirpeset?
Mirpeset, the ones on the second floor, the balcony, the porch. Okay? Pachot mikan, if it's going to be less than 10 tvachim, lechatzer, it belongs to the chatzer. One of these words, elu shel rabim v'shel rabim, when both of them belong to the rabim, which means that you have ta'inim rabim also in the chatzer and also in the second floor. Irvu, right? Elu latzman ve'elu latzman, but they made an eruv for themselves, right? But they didn't do it with the other ones, right? Or shel yichidim, or that the chatzer mirpeset belonged to an individual, right? She'en tzachim la'arev, that they don't have to make an eruv. Aval shel rabim, but if it's a whole bunch of different people, v'shachu ve'lo irvu, and they forgot and they didn't make an eruv, right? So then in such a case, they're asur letaltel. Okay, they're not allowed to be metaltel.
You just lost me. Can you give me outside 2 seconds?
Yeah, we said, again, one more time, you have people, the chatzer, and you have mirpeset. Okay, so in a case, we said that if you had over here something that was tall, 10 tvachim tall, right? So if it's going to be 10 tvachim tall plus, the people of the mirpeset are allowed to use that thing, but not the people of the
Give me an
chatzer.
example of something that's 10 tvachim tall.
You remember the pictures of the stones on the side or the
I never knew what
pillars?
those were
10
for.
4x4, the 10 and 4x4.
You mean like a barrel and things like
Yeah,
that?
anything that was tall on the
You
side
remember
that I
the
could actually
picture
come and
of
use it. You
the
remember
brick
here I had
fall?
the.
It was a brick fall.
Yeah, but I didn't know what the brick fall is,
It was there. It was just in
All right.
packages of putting things there. Sometimes you just have a wall, you have a tree, you have something, and you're gonna put things there. So it says over here. So what happens is that if they forgot and they didn't make an eruv, so if it's 10 tvachim tall, it goes to the mirpeset. If it's gonna be less, it goes to the chatzer. Right now it says here medvani, one of these words, if it belongs to the rabim, right? Now he says over here, which means that there's a rabim in both, right? And they made an eruv.
What do you mean,
right?
rabim in both?
Rabim means of multitudes, meaning that there's more than one person. Okay.
No, but not one person owns it. It's the communities.
No, you have a few houses. That's what it means.
Oh.
Right? It's few houses on the top, few houses on the bottom. So he says, but they made an eruv within themselves, right? But they didn't make an eruv with the bottom people. Meaning, for example, they made an eruv with themselves. They made an eruv, but they didn't make an eruv between them. So he says, or for example, it belongs to a yachid, which means that there's only one person on the bottom and one person on the top, right? So he says over here, so therefore, in such a case, you do not have to make an eruv in order to be mitzater from the house to the chatzer, right? Or from the aliyah to the mirpeset. But since they're the only ones in that area, so they don't need to make an eruv. But if it did belong to a rabbim and they forgot that they did not make an eruv, so then obviously they're not allowed to carry. Okay, now when you have gag v'chatzer v'achsadr mirpeset, so now this is this picture also as well. You have everything here. Yeah, you see over here it says it's a gag, the roof, right? Chatzer, the courtyard. Technically here you have 2 courtyards, right? Achsadra, the trellis, the pergola, right? Umirpeset, and you have the balcony, the porch over here, right? Kulan reshut achaten. They're all one reshut. Tama, the reasoning why they lo eruv, because they didn't make any eruv. But if they did make an eruv, so then they're not allowed to be metaltel. Which means that since it's not the house, all of these things are considered the same, and that's what we learned before. We learned that the gag chatzer, right? Obviously, we're in Shitat Rabbi Shimon, right? That it's all one concept. So since it's all one concept, I'm allowed to carry from the roof to the chatzer, from the chatzer to the chatzer, from the chatzer to achsad to mirpeset, and so on and so forth.
The chatzer, I don't see there is an opening.
Yeah, there's no opening. So technically, I wouldn't be able to.
Exactly.
I'm saying
So
fine, but that's a technical. It's logistics. If there was an opening, or I could do it on top of the
exactly
of
go
the
like that,
yeah, go like that.
fine. But the way it shows, it's not.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Just
Let's say
to
you could just put it above. There's no problem. Mitzad halacha. Okay. So Hamani, who is this? Obviously, this is in according to Rabbanan, right? So it's not like Rabbi Shimon. This has to be going according to Rabbanan, because Rabbanan said that they also say from a gag chatzer you're allowed to, as we mentioned above. Okay, but they said, but they didn't permit from a gag to a chatzer. Okay, so that's what we're saying here. It's saying that they also said from a gag to a chatzer is one reshut, right? And in Shitat Chachamim, they didn't permit from a gag to the chatzer when they made an eruv, right? Whatsoever. It means if there was no eruv, you're allowed to, but if they made an eruv, you're not allowed to anymore. Like anami deloktani karpaf mavui. So then he said that's actually you could deduce properly, because the fact that we didn't learn the karpaf in the mavui, that was like Rabbi Shimon. Was according to Rabbi Shimon, the karpaf is also permitted. Shemamina. So obviously this has to be according to the rabbis and not according to Rabbi Shimon. But according to Rabbi Shimon, it would be permitted. Okay, fine. Now we go to the next one, which is the next picture, 972. Tashema. We're going to try to bring a proof, right, to Rav. Chamesh chatzerot haptuchot zu lezu ptuchot lamavui. You have 5 courtyards, okay? They're all open to each other, and they're all open to the mavui. So the mavui is this. Remember that when you have the paved roads, right, the roads like this, like it looks like a mamasha road, that's a reshut rabim. When you have this is the mavui. So here you have the mavui, 5 courtyards. Every courtyard has an entrance to the mavui. Entrance, 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 entrance. But also between every chatzer and chatzer, you have an opening, right? Opening, 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 opening. So you have 4 openings there, you have 5 openings here, everything's perfect, okay? So now it says the Gemara, right? It says, V'shachu hulam velo irvu. So everybody forgot, nobody did urvei chatzerot. Okay, so asul lachnis ulotzi mechatzer lamavui, minavui lechatzer. So for sure, you're not allowed to come and you're not allowed to take from the chatzer to the mavui, and the mavui to the chatzer. Why? Because according to Chachamim, that they prohibit taking from a chatzer to a karpaf or mavui. Okay, so that's shitat Chachamim. Okay, so I cannot take from this chatzer to the mavui or the mavui to the chatzer, whichever, doesn't matter which one.
You can go all through the
now it says, V'kelim sheshatu b'chatzer, mutal tadlan b'chatzer. Now anything which was already in the chatzer, you're allowed to take them from one chatzer to another chatzer. Umavui asur. Now in the mavui it's going to be asur. But Rabbi Shimon matir. Rabbi Shimon says you're allowed to take from the chatzer to the mavui, right? Why? Rabbi Shimon used to say, anytime that all the reshuyot belong to the public and they forgot they didn't do an eruv, everything, whether it's a gag, the roof, chatzer, a courtyard, and achsad, the trellis, a pergola, or the balcony, or the right on the top, or the karpaf, the storage place, or the mavui, kulan reshut achaten. It's all considered one.
Do we hold like Rav Shimon today or not?
I do not know. There's no number here. I do not know. Yeah. So it says here, Tama, the reasoning is, de lo irvu, because they did not make an eruv. Ha irvu, if they did make an eruv, then no. So it comes out, right, that Shimon did not permit it in such a case if they made an eruv, he didn't permit it. So therefore you see from here that it's like Rav, that he's holding in Shitat Rabbi Shimon. Right, that basically if they did an eruv, they're not allowed to carry between all these things. Right, it's only permitted because they didn't do an eruv, but if they did do an eruv, that's it. So says the Gemara, no. Umay lo ervu. What does it mean that they didn't do an eruv? Lo ervu chatzerot ba'adi adadi. They didn't make eruv chatzerot between themselves. Ha-chatzeru batim eruv, but within the same chatzer and houses, they did make an eruv. Meaning, here you have the chatzer, correct? In every single chatzer, there were 2 houses. So in this chatzer in itself, they didn't make an eruv between them. And therefore, they're allowed to carry from their houses to the chatzer. But nobody made an eruv between each chatzer and chatzer, right? Commonly, between everyone, right? Or, right, the shituf mavot, they didn't do that either. So therefore, in such a scenario, it comes out, that's why he's saying over here, that when Rabbi, what?
Can I make more than one Arab? Like, can I make one Arab with this guy and one Arab? Well, you can't do that, can you?
Why not?
I can make 3 different errors.
No, this is Eruv Chatzerot between themselves. Then I'm going to make Eruv Chatzerot between the other Eruv Chatzerot, and then I do Shituf Mevot, which is between the entire Mavui. But again, here you wouldn't do Shituf Mevot because you would, well, no, you do have it because you have Chatzerot here. Remember, Shituf Mevot is only when there's 2 Chatzerot. Here there's 5 Chatzerot, so you could also do Shituf Mevot. Shituf Mevot is going to connect all of them together, then now they could carry within the Mavui itself also as well. Okay?
But you don't need to carry it in the Mabui if you have connected all the houses inside. For what do you need the Mabui?
Let's say I want to carry in the Mavui itself as well.
Okay.
I'm over here in this extreme. I want to get in this extreme. Instead of me walking by all these properties, I could go in the Mavui, walk down, and come in. Yeah, I don't want to bother you. I'm not going to go through all your properties. Everyone has to see that I'm bringing you my adafina to taste. I don't want.
But you know who is in the Mabui. Maybe there's more things that you don't want you to see.
Yeah, but remember, if you're in the Mavui, you could be taking it anywhere. You understand? If I'm going through, everyone's seeing, look, he's walking through with the adafina. Where's he taking it? It was like when Lahmi used to bring the bread, the Sudah Shlishit. Everyone used to watch, where's he taking it?
Dorisa.
Yeah? Fine. So it says over here, Veha lo irvu ktani. Says the Gemara, yeah, but we learned velo irvu, which means that they didn't make an eruv at all. So says the Gemara, mai lo irvu, what does it mean that they didn't make an eruv? Lo nishtatfu. They weren't mishtatef for shituf mevot. Okay? So that's what it means. That means they didn't do shituf mevot, but they did do eruv chatzerot. Okay, which is within the same chatzer, they did do it, but they didn't do the shituf mevot.
I'm seeing stars. It's okay. This is very difficult stuff.
Who knocked you out? Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. So it says here, V'yibai Tamar, if you want, you could answer. Rabbi Shimon l'divrem de Rabbanan kamalu. Rabbi Shimon is going in accordance of the Rabbanan, the rabbis. And he says like this, Lididi, according to me, lo shna eruv v'lo shna lo eruv. There's no difference between an eruv or no eruv. Right? There's no difference whatsoever. But according to you guys, that there is a difference. You do have to agree to me, though, in a case where they did not make an eruv, that it's all one reshut. And the rabbis say, no, we don't agree to you. And they're considered 2 different reshuyot. And since they're considered 2 different reshuyot, 2 different domains, you're not allowed to carry in between them any of the utensils which were there in the houses. So basically what we're trying to say is that according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, there's no difference whether you made an eruv or not make an eruv, it's always going to be permitted. According to the rabbis, there was a difference. And the rabbis are just saying that they do not agree to Rabbi Shimon. And they are actually they're saying that there's always going to be a difference because the Chatzer and Mavui are considered 2 completely different domains. And since they're completely 2 different domains, you're never allowed to carry from the Chatzer to the Mavui. Remember, that's why we took out Kapraf and Mavui, because Kapraf and Mavui were completely different than a Chatzer.
The shita is very simple. One of them is inclusive, one of them is exclusive.
Yes.
That's it. And if you exclude them, then you obviously need to
100%.
zoom in. You do your between the zoom-ins area that they excluded.
No, but again, you have to make it a little bit more complicated, though, because you have to go into the fact that there's 2 things. First of all, according to Rabbi Shimon, they're all one reshut. All one reshut means everything. The karpaf, the mavui, the gag, the achsadra, chatzer, everything is all the same reshut.
Not in the house.
No, not the house, but everything else, yes, which is everything else. According to the Chachamim, no. The karpaf and the mavui was outside, which means that the karpaf, which was the storage house, and the mavui, the thoroughfare, is completely a separate domain, according to the rabbis. Second machloke between them is if you did an eruv or not an eruv. According to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, right, doesn't matter. I don't care. You did an eruv, not an eruv, it's all the same thing. According to Shitat, why? Because you don't make a gezerah, you don't make the decree. Remember that. According to the Rabbanan, there is a difference whether you made an eruv or not. If you made an eruv, achalta ota mitzad the other places, that means you helped yourself to do with your own chatzer, but you shot yourself in the leg to do with the other chatzerot. But if you didn't do an eruv, so then it's okay.
That's Rav and Shmuel.
That's what we just said in Shitat Rabbanan. Yes.
No, Shimon.
Well, that's in Shitat Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. Shitat Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. Okay? But this was trying to bring a proof to Rav, and we were doched Raya to Rav.
That's a machloket between Rav Shimon and Rabbanan?
Yes, Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. Okay? That was just Bekitzur. We just tried to make a very short synopsis.
And there is a reason why the Rav Shimon had this commentary? Like there's a reason for that?
No, he just said that we don't make a decree. So since we don't make a decree, there's no difference whether you made an eruv or not. It's all the same. If I hold that it's all the same reshut, it's all the same domain, so it's all the same. Think about it. What's meant the difference between a courtyard and a roof? Saying it serves the same purpose. Saying just some people have roofs, some people have courtyards, and some people don't have none.
They lived on the roofs.
Well, okay. Well, sometimes they lived on the roofs, not always.
Yeah.
So,
So, Rabbi, I'd like to raise a question in regards to today. On a big scale, you gave him an answer. You said, no, I don't really know. I get it. But on a big scale, where are we leaning towards? What should?
no idea. I didn't learn in the Masechet Eruvin, so I have no clue. So don't ask me. Yeah. So it says like this.
Not simple.
What? 100%. Nowadays, they usually don't learn Eruvin unless you're a rabbi of an entire city. Yes.
Because it's not valid?
For example, in Eretz Israel, right, Rav Kila, you need Isur
Very,
Beter.
very complicated.
Rav Shchuna is another level, and then there's Rav Air. Rav Air is the entire city. So if you're Rav Air, you have to know Eiruvin, right? Because you're in charge of the Eiruvin in the entire city. Here, why would a regular, forget about Rav Shchuna, even Rav Shchuna, I'm saying, why would you need to know Ilchot Eiruvin? I'm saying it just doesn't, so therefore they don't usually learn it. Saying they'll learn other things first. It's not that it doesn't apply, it's just that it's much less because usually there's one rabbi that he's an expert in Eiruvin, and he's the one in charge of all the rest. So for example, here you have Rabbi Weberman Sr., right? He was the one that was always in charge of the Eiruvin, even until today, right? Now his son helps him a lot, but whatever. So now if he's the one in charge, why would I have to get involved in the Eruv? I don't even have to know about the Eruv. It's either the Eruv is kosher or not kosher. So because of that, they just don't learn Ilchot Eruvin. It's just very, very simple. Okay? Fine. Next, it says over here, Amar More says, Uvamavui Asur. Right? When it comes over here, we're talking about an Amavui, it's going to be Asur. Okay, so we said that obviously you're not allowed to be metaltel from the Amavui if they didn't do Shituf Mevot, if they didn't join together. So Lema Meselea le Rabbi Zira Marav. So why don't we just say that this actually helps as a proof to Rabbi Zira in the name of Rav. The Amar Rabbi Zira Marav says Rabbi Zira Marav, Mavui Sheloni Shatfubo. If you have a Mavui that they didn't do Shituf Mevot, and metaltelin in Arba Amot, you could only carry Arba Amot, just like a Carmelit. Because if they didn't do any Shituf Mevot, you're not allowed to carry inside of it. So says the Gemara, 1 second, don't bring me a proof over there that the Mavui is going to be Asur for even Kelim which are outside. That means this is going to be a proof against Rabbi Shimon. Ema velam Mavui Asur. You have to say, Vela Mavui Asur. Which means, no, the ones that were from the Chatzed, you're allowed to take it into the Chatzed, just like we said before. But it's Asur to be metaltel from the Chatzed to the Mavui if they didn't do such a Shituf Mevot. So says the Gemara, but that's the first case. You already taught it. Yeah, you taught this already in the first case. So answers the Gemara, Mishnah Yitera, you didn't need this extra part of the Mishnah. Why did they need this extra part of the Mishnah? He says, because it says, I would have thought to say, when do the rabbis argue on Rabbi Shimon? That's only if they made an eruv. But if they didn't make an eruv, then they would agree to Rabbi Shimon. That's why they needed the extra Mishnah. Again, we told you there were two different machlokot, but we have to put them together. What does that mean? First machloket is between Rabbi Shimon and Chachamim. What exactly is considered the same domains? According to the Chachamim, everything was the same domain, which means Gag, Chatzer, and Achsadra, except for Karpaf and Mavui. Karpaf and Mavui was the outside, the thoroughfare and the storage houses. That's on the outside. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's all the same. It's all the same cholent. It's all the same salad. So it's all the exact same concept. Second machloket is, right now, if they made an eruv within themselves, meaning one Chatzer over here, they made eruv Chatzerot. Does that now shoot themselves in the leg, or does that now, there's a better word for it, does it make it worse, right? The fact that now they cannot come and not do the rest now. So according to Rabbi Shimon, they didn't make such a decree, so if it's going to be permitted, even though they did make an eruv chatzerot within themselves, and according to the rabbis, they did. So comes the Gemara and says, but if you're going to tell me now you cannot carry into the mavui, we already knew that, according to the rabbis. So the Gemara says we had an extra Mishnah in order to teach us that we would have thought to say that if they made an eruv, right? If they made an eruv, right? Then, if they didn't make an eruv, he would have been modeh. Kamashvanan, that even if he didn't make an eruv, right? The rabbis do not agree to Rabbi Shimon, and they still say that the karpaf and the mavui are two completely different concepts. Okay? And then we obviously have the next part of the daf, which is basically Amale Ravina Ravashi, and Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Does Rabbi Yochanan actually say such a thing? And then he says like the halacha like the Stam Mishnah, and we continue going from there. Zrat Hashem tomorrow.